Michael McKee is there, and he spoke with Patrick Harker, who's the Philadelphia Fed president, earlier. Mike, give us the highlights of your conversation.
Well, first, I want to back up, Julie, just a little bit and go to Washington, where Fed Chairman Jay Powell did an interview with Marketplace today. We haven't seen the interview, but we've read the transcripts, and Powell says the economy is in a good place, but they haven't declared victory on inflation. So if you're on a trading desk, that matters because it suggests the Fed is going to continue its gradual pace of tightening and not necessarily stop or speed things up. Powell also went on to say that trade is not having a major impact on the Fed at the moment, but that no nation has done a good job dealing with trade wars and that open trade has served nations well. And that's where Patrick Harker comes in. He told me that the models show us that we aren't going to have a major macroeconomic impact from the trade wars that we've seen so far. But it could get worse if people think it's going to get worse. Here's what he had to say.
Small, medium size enterprises who are looking at making some investments are now saying, at least through our survey work and through interviews, we may hold off on these and just see how things shake out. If enough of that happens, if we lose those animal spirits, then I think we have an issue. Because again, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If everybody believes this is going to have a larger impact than it may in fact have if we run our models, then it's going to have a larger impact.
Now, the interesting thing is this summit attracts a lot of business leaders and investors, and the feeling is maybe those animal spirits are starting to disappear. The CEO of an Arkansas-based company saying a little earlier, you know, the macroeconomists say it's not a big impact, but on Main Street, companies are starting to get worried. And Harker talked about a company in his district that makes steel products. They have to pay a lot more for the steel that they use, and they can't raise prices. So their future is a little dicey right now. So we may not see it in the data yet, but according to Harker, and it seems that Jay Powell's on board with that thought, we could see an impact, at least at the micro level, and then moving to the macro level over time.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up, especially with companies getting ready to report their second quarter results. That'll certainly be something we listen for, whether it's in the actual announcement of the results or through the Q&A of the earnings conference call. Jay Powell also saying in that same interview with Marketplace that the Fed is hearing rising concerns about trade policy effects as well. Michael, I was just looking at the Fed Go page on the Bloomberg here, which allows us to kind of get a snapshot of everything the Federal Reserve has on tap. And in terms of events, the Fed will be releasing a monetary policy report to Congress on the 13th, tomorrow at 11 a.m. What kind of report is that, and what might we glean from that report in terms of how the Fed decides to move forward?
It's interesting. That used to be released at the same time as the chairman gives his Humphrey Hawkins testimony, which is next week, but they've moved it up now. Now, it generally looks back at the economy over the last 6 months and the Fed's monetary policy actions, but it includes some interesting essays about how the Fed sees parts of the economy developing. And one of the things you could look for is if there's anything in there about trade or about education, because right now the unemployment rate we know is 4%. It's about 3.4% for people with some college, 2.4% for people with a college education. It's the people who don't have a lot of extra education who are being left behind. And Pat Harker today also said that's the thing that the government of the United States really needs to work on. It's not the Fed, it's the fiscal side. They need to reform education and prepare people